All right, 21 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry I went so long with the intro music. Years ago, I read a book by, don't tell me, the guy Richard Bach?
Yes.
Richard Bach, the guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Sequel. Across Forever, and in the book he is with his lady friend, and he writes it as if it was a biography, an autobiography. And anyway, in like a cafe, he sees this like very poorly dressed man and all disheveled, and the lady says, "Who is that?" He goes, "Oh, that's me in a parallel universe. That's me." And I've often thought that. I've often looked at people and thought, I wonder if that could have been me had I taken certain choices in my life. I might not be who I am now. Oh my gosh, the book we're going to talk about takes this to a whole different level. Elan Mastai has written this awesome book. It's called All Our. This is a novel filled with humor and family, and really explores some of the things that we often wonder about ourselves, whether we're successful or not. I often wonder, what if we had done this instead of that? Elan, hi, we've got a very short interview with you, but I just want to tell you we've enjoyed the book greatly. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for the kind words in the book. I really appreciate it.
Where are you calling from?
I'm in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. It's very cold, but my in-laws, Bill and Mary Morris, are in Orlando right now. That's where they spend a lot of the year, so I want to say hello to them.
Is that right?
Oh, nice.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time in the area. And Orlando and Fort Myers, so I know it well, visiting my in-laws down there, so it's really great to be on the phone with you.
So what is the genesis of the book? Were you looking around wondering if you had done something different in your earlier life that you would be a different person today, or at least a different experience today?
I mean, I think that, like a lot of people, and yeah, absolutely, look around and get here. And sometimes it's in a positive way, like, when good things happen, you're like, how did that happen? And sometimes it's in a negative way, And at the same time, I was noticing there's a lot of dystopian literature, there's a lot of, like, these YA novels and movies and TVs imagining these dystopias. I was seeing more and more of them. But I thought about my grandfather, who was born in New York City in the Great Depression. He became a chemist, and he was a big sci-fi nut. He's introduced me to a lot of science fiction. And I thought about, like, what would he think of the year 2000? Transported here. Unfortunately, he passed away many years ago. Generation think, because it's not the right. It's not the 2017 isn't what we imagined it was going to turn out to be. And so I like that idea of looking around at both the world and also, wait, how did we get here?
Yeah, it is interesting how the technology maybe could have been predicted, but the lifestyles couldn't have been. You couldn't have predicted, Donald Trump being the president, I don't think, or things negative nor positive. It was just you wouldn't have pictured them. I don't think back in the day, right?
No, of course not. I mean, it's like most situations. It's sort of like, a series of historical things had to happen to get this person in this place at this time. And that's like that for all of us. I grew up in a family where from different places, every parts of the world, and it all had to come together. All these people had to different spots of the world just to kind of produce me here talking to you.
Right.
There's so many circumstances, and all of us are like that, whether your parents went to school or whether they came from different countries. So many things had to happen to get each of us to exist, and some of those things are personal, some of those things are historical, right? And I find that stuff fascinating, and I think, we all think about these hinge moments in our history, these little choices we made, which at the time we maybe didn't even realize the implications of them. Like, we didn't know what we were getting. We didn't know that the decision we were making was going to lead off in this direction. And then you look back, and I think that's why time travel is such a enduring kind of storytelling thing for us, because we all look back and go, wait a minute, like, I only know now the consequences of the decision. If only I could go back, make a better decision, a second chance, But that's why I think it's fun to think about that stuff.
You have excellent dialogue in the book, and one of the conversations that was going on between two of the characters, the one person says, "I'm not talking about God, I'm talking about the world around us," and I thought that was a very profound statement.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was a screenwriter for a number of years, and so I part of as a writer in the movies, you work a lot on the dialogue, so I took that stuff seriously. I tried to make it feel as real as possible. At the as a first-time novelist, because this is my first novel, it's like it was fun to kind of be able to know that I'm having that direct connection with the readers. What I'm writing is what they're reading. It's like a conversation we're having. So I wanted the book to feel very conversational. Like it's got a very light, kind of nonchalant style, because I wanted it to feel like a good friend of yours is telling you a story about adventure they had.
It is interesting how reading a book by a screenplay writer like yourself, sometimes you get that movie experience, although it's way more detailed, I think, than a movie would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, a movie is going to be 2 hours long, and it's going to be a very visual experience. I mean, obviously, the book is a little longer than that. I mean, unless you're an incredibly fast reader. But I wanted it to be like a cinematic experience. Like my job is to create a movie inside your mind.
Mm-hmm. And you had to have done a lot of for the book. It's not just about living as well.
Yeah. Research, there's a lot of, there's some big scientific ideas, there's some big, I go back in history, there's some sort of philosophical ideas in it. I did a lot of research. I mean, I feel like my job as a writer is to do as much research as possible so it's as accurate as possible, but not to force the reader to read all of that. I mean, you don't need to wade through all of my research to enjoy the story. I give you, as the reader, the things you need to know to make the story as interesting as possible. And but as a writer, I don't mind if there's a moment where oh, that's really interesting, I'd like to know more of that, and you maybe go do your own research. That's great, but I want to give enough that it's interesting and exciting, but not so much that it's a burden.
I don't know if this is too much over the edge, but we've spoken to a lot of people, and sometimes if you speak to somebody who's been lucky enough to live 80-something years, they will often tell you that they put their life on hold when they had children. And then when the children were grown, then they kind of picked up where they left off instead of just carrying on that same path. So it's almost like they leapfrogged from 20 years ago to whatever, 20 years later, and either took that college course that they always wanted to take, or took that risk that they always wanted to take, and were able to, I guess, put their lives back on track. It's an interesting world we live in. It's interesting. Life is interesting, isn't it?
It is. It's endlessly fascinating, and no matter what you're talking about, sort of historical trends or scientific ideas, it always comes down to people. And that's what gives our life meaning, right? It's the people in our lives. And I think that's such an interesting thing that you just said, that idea that, it's you can make the decisions in your life to change things, Sometimes the timing is wrong. Sometimes you have other priorities. You might feel like you want to create a certain kind of environment for your kids, and so you're going to put certain things on hold, and then when your circumstances change, you can get back to it. Right. And I think that's so interesting, my grandfather was a chemist, but he had wanted to be a writer, but it was the Great Depression. That was and then after he didn't retire from his chemical practice until he was 81, and then he wrote 6 novels and a memoir.
There you go. Well, there's a perfect example. And no time machine necessary, right? All Our Wrong Today is an. You got to check this one out. I've got a copy of it here. If you want the one that was sent to me, call me. I'll put your name on it. The rest of us have to go buy it. Elan Mastai has a website. It is hisname.com. And I'm guessing the book is everywhere books are sold. Am I right?
Everywhere books are sold or downloaded, or you can even listen to my voice on the audiobook if that's the way you like it.
Oh, I love those. Okay, I'm going to do that one. Elan, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. 6 p.m. Eastern, the deadline for the administration to file legal briefs in efforts to have President Trump's ban on travelers from mostly Muslim nations reinstated. White House spokesman Sean Spicer tells Fox and Friends the president